Former Pakistan President Pervez Musharraf is all set to make a triumphant return to the country today as he prepares to lead his party, the PMLQ, to the upcoming National Assembly elections. Musharraf's last hurdle was cleared after he was granted bail in advance to avoid being arrested upon his planned return home following nearly 4 years of self-imposed exile. Musharraf, who seized power in a 1999 coup, resigned in 2008 when his allies lost a vote and a new government threatened him with impeachment. He left the country a year later. There are several arrest warrants out for the former Pakistani general. He is accused of failing to provide adequate security to former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto ahead of her assassination in 2007. He is also wanted in connection with the murder of a Baloch tribal leader, Nawab Akbar Bukhti, and for the sacking of the entire higher judiciary in November 2007. Musharraf's return is being followed closely by India, given that the general's tenure in office saw dramatic contrast from the Kargil conflict to relations reaching an all-time high with India. Speaking exclusively to Headlines Today's political editor Javed Ansari, Musharraf made it clear that he wanted to start from where he left off.
Today, President Musharraf will end 5 years of self-imposed exile and travel back to Pakistan. Many believe this will be one of the most significant trips he's taken in his life. Obviously, this trip has raised many questions both in India and abroad. And to answer all that, we have President Musharraf himself. So there's been great curiosity. Why now?
Because it's now or never. I mean, if I joined politics, I made a party to bring a change in Pakistan because Pakistan is suffering and there's total collapse of governance. It's a dysfunctional government. So unless we change this environment, Pakistan's future is dark. So I want to improve Pakistan's future. It's now or never.
So will you contest the elections? Do you see yourself as a savior of Pakistan?
Well, I did save Pakistan once. I think when I came in 1999, Pakistan was almost a defaulted state. Technically, we had defaulted and a failed state almost, being declared a failed state. And we converted that, and in 2006, we were thought to be one of the next 11 countries of the world. So this is what we achieved. And I think the same has to be done again for Pakistan.
So there are many who believe that you may face arrest. There are obvious risks to your life. Why take this chance? Why put yourself in so much of trouble?
In the state that in the position that I have held and the position that I have occupied, and things change. I think there are things which are greater than self. I think where I have been, I think I have started thinking of causes greater than self. I'm not thinking of myself alone. If I was to think of myself, yes, indeed. Why am I going?
So
but the moment I see
Taliban
the cause,
issued a fresh threat to your life. There's also talk your political opponents want you put behind bars.
Well, opponents would like to want many things, and the Taliban have been threatening me since after 9/11 for 12 years. So now also there is nothing new. So I have to go, and no risk, no gain. If I am not prepared to take risks, then why am I in politics? Why did I take this cause? I'm not a confused thinker. So I have thought of it, and I have taken a deliberate action 3 years back when I created a party, and therefore I'm following the same course.
So you obviously appear very confident even in the face of so much of adversity. Have you got some assurances from the government, from the army, that you'll be looked after, that you won't be arrested when you get back?
No, I haven't got any. I'm not in the habit of asking. I've never asked. I haven't been requesting. And maybe my assurance is only from the biggest, God Almighty.
So the buzz in Pakistan and outside is that this election may throw up a hung parliament. In that eventuality, would you ally with somebody? Would you look at who would you think would be the most likely ally? Would it be Imran Khan or some of the people that you put in jail?
Well, first of all, I have to have an aim. My aim is to change the political status quo and bring in a third political force. Unless we do that, we cannot change Pakistan. So in that, if I can go alone and do it, to change the political status quo and create a force which can defeat the existing government political parties who are governing, well and good. But if I can't, yes, I ought to be prepared to get into coalition with somebody in order to achieve that
Who is
aim.
that most likely person of all the
Well,
players?
everyone, anyone and everyone, whoever I
Even
think.
Mr. Zardari's party and Nawaz Sharif's party?
Well, they are the political status quo. As I said, the aim has to be clear.
The Imran wants to change the status quo.
Well, yes, then he could be, yes. But you clap with two hands. He has to be prepared also.
So you've always evoked tremendous interest in India, and people say, what is your vision of India Pak? You know, when you were the president, when you were in charge, Kargil happened, but also India and Pakistan came extremely close to signing a peace deal. So where do you see relations going, and how do you think we can achieve that?
Yes, I think the relation between India and Pakistan, I am very, very clear, ought to be harmonious. We must. The current this century of geoeconomics demands that. We are countries where people masses are poor, and they are looking for socio-economic growth. If we cooperate, certainly we can help each other socio-economically. So therefore, there has to be peace between India and Pakistan. We have to resolve our disputes, and we have to move forward in a manner of cooperation between the two countries. That is my vision, and that is my vision with my mind and heart involved.
So could you start from where you left off? I'm told we were extremely close to signing a deal on all the four contentious issues.
Yes.
Would you start? Do you think there is enough ground to start from where you left off?
Which is the fourth one that you are talking of? May I ask?
It was
There were three.
Siachen,
Sirkri,
Kashmir.
Which is the fourth one?
Okay, let's see the third one.
Okay, but there is a fourth one. Yes, the water dispute is getting evolved into a fourth one. We must avoid that. But yes, we were very close. Siachen and Sirkri can be signed yesterday. It has been done. The Sirkri, the joint survey by the two navies has been done. We have identified the disputed area. It's a leadership call. What do you want to do with the disputed area? So also Siachen, we have identified the line beyond which two forces should withdraw. So what do you want to do?
Permit me to ask you a question. Every time a leader from Pakistan says this, people are very enthused. But then they also look to the fact that you in 2004 had a deal with Mr. Vajpayee where you decided that no Pakistani territory would not be allowed to be used for terror activities against India. And the tap was turned off for several years. Yet now we see incidents happening, likes of Hafiz Saeed has a free run of the place. How can India persuade itself to talk peace?
I'm afraid these are things which antagonizes anyone in Pakistan. A person like me who wants peace between India and Pakistan from head and heart. Absolutely.
Head and heart.
Yes. And not merely with the tongue. But may I say that when you bring about arguments trying to show that Pakistan is the only rogue and culprits, the Pakistan military, Pakistan intelligence, and you try to avoid talking of what you have split our country into half. Your RAW has aided Mukti Bahini. They used to be armed and they used to stay there. So what are you talking? I mean, that is what antagonizes me, frankly. How can we say that? You will talk of Kargil, but you are not talking. You avoid talking of Siachen. Why did you come into Siachen? Why did you split our country into half? That is very ideal. That is very noble. But Pakistan is the rogue for entering. Please understand, both of us are rogues against each other. We must understand that. You are rogues as far as we are concerned. We are rogues as far as you are concerned. Yes, they are both correct. We have been doing this since we fought our first war in 1948, then 1965, then 1971, then Siachen, then Kargil. Yes, we have done this. We have both done this for each other. But please stop blaming Pakistan being the only culprit, not you. I know for sure what your consulates in Jalalabad and Kandahar are doing. I know it. I'm not guessing. I know what you're doing. I know how you are equipping, arming, financing terrorists in Balochistan. So please don't think that it is only ISI doing it. That is what I will never agree with. That is where we get bogged down.
So if you come to power, can you assure the people of India that the tap will once again be turned off and the peace will be given a chance between two countries?
100%. Not one-sided. We both have to take steps. When we go for dispute resolution, we have to meet halfway, isn't it? Isn't that logical? Halfway means you will have to take some steps backwards even, and Pakistan will take steps back. How can we resolve Kashmir unless there is a give and take? Give and take. You can't take and take. You will have to give. Are you prepared to give? Pakistan is prepared to give. Yes, we will give. But you must give also. Don't expect Pakistan to give only. That is a no-go. And the problem arises there. The problem arises when Indian leadership or India tries to dominate and tries to take all. Not doable unless we lose our honor and dignity. If we want to and we know how to preserve our honor and dignity, we will not allow India to take all. So that is where the problem arises. So please don't do this. And may I also add, for the sake of even although the answer is getting long, magnanimity. When we are talking, India is certainly much bigger than Pakistan. Who doesn't know? We know it. Indian Army is 3 times, Air Force, Navy, very strong. India is one of the strongest Army, Navy, Air Force of the world. Who doesn't know it? I'm a military man, I know it. But please don't put it down our throat. Magnanimity, when you compromise, let me put it like this, compromise accommodation from a weaker or smaller, all negative connotations come. He's given up, he's surrendered, he's scared. But from a stronger, from a bigger, all the positive connotations, magnanimity, large-heartedness. So please show large-heartedness. Compromise. Compromise has to come more from India than from Pakistan. So these are my thoughts on this.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, President Musharraf.
Thank you.
People in India are looking forward to your trip.
Thank you.